And I look over and I see this guy. The instant I see him, I know everything about him. But
Mm.
what I'll share is I knew his name was James. I knew that he was obese, which kind of shocked me. Even in hell, he was obese. He was quite
Mm.
obese. And I knew that he just lived that kind of life. He didn't care about life, he didn't care about his body, and he especially did not care about God.
Mm.
And he died of a heart attack at age 55. He
Wow.
didn't seem to know I was there. He never looked at me, he never acknowledged me, and he never said a word, not a single word. But I saw these on his stomach. I saw these bubbles like boils begin to form from the heat coming
Mm.
off the his body, and that would pop, and the smoke would roll up his chest and roll right into his nose and go into him. And he
Mm.
was just it's like facing the torment of the way we choose to live this life now. It is so important. It is so precious. Every decision, the thought of our hearts, the intention of our hearts. How can we live this life and waste it away and be so lackadaisical, so lazy and uncaring, and we'll just let things, words,
Mm.
fly out of our mouth without stopping for just 1 second to think maybe what I consider an insignificant thing that I'm doing now, what about the ripple effect it could potentially be having on everything and everyone else around me?
Mm.
What if you just took a minute throughout your day and thought about it? I'm at the store, I'm standing in line, and so and so scowling at me for no reason. What if I just smiled back at them and meant it, and they could see my love for them? What if they
Mm.
could walk away from that and be like, man, I need to lighten up today. I think
Mm.
I'm going to lighten up today. And so they lighten up today. And they go out there and they bless some other people. And those people lighten up today. Next thing everybody's lightening up just one little decision. That's how it is with heaven. We're
Mm.
being watched. Everything we think, say, do, or willingly don't do that we know we should be doing, it's all being written down. And we are all accountable for it. This life, this little mist of time we have here in this realm, is very precious, and we need to take it very seriously because that man I was looking at didn't. He didn't
Mm.
care. He just wanted what he wanted, and he got what he wanted, and he didn't care. He didn't think about anything. He didn't think about the people he was hurting. He didn't care. He cared in that moment. I
Mm.
saw him as he looked up. He didn't have eyes. All he had were empty sockets. His lifeless, empty sockets where eyeballs could have and should have been looked up to heaven. And again, he never said a word, but I could see what his eyes were saying. And they were begging God for forgiveness. But it was too late. It was too late for that man. And he knew it. He knew. He wasn't sitting there having an argument with God. He wasn't shaking his fist at God. He knew he deserved to be there. He
Mm.
wasted his whole precious life living for one person, himself. And that's where he would spend the rest of his eternity as well. And his head went down to his chest and just went like that. And he began sobbing. But as you can imagine, teardrops do not exist in hell.
Mm.
I knew that in this place where I was, there was no air, no water, no light, and no life. Absolutely non existent in this place. I could see only because I needed to see what was happening. When
Mm.
Jesus talks about being cast into outer darkness, when we think about it, what's the first thing God creates? Light. I don't believe that was photon energy because he didn't create the sun until day 4, I want to say, the sun and
Mhm.
the moon and the stars. This
Mm.
light is the light of his presence
Mm.
within this universe he just created. He's like, I'm in this. I'm going to be in all of this. I
Mhm.
saturate everything. I'm in all of this. That's that light he's talking about. Hell is a place where God won't be. If you don't want him in your life now, while you have your own free choice, then sadly, that's where you're going to spend the rest of eternity in a place where he won't be. There is no light there. I was only allowed to see so I could understand these things that were happening. That's what I believe. The flames were so intense and so hot. They were like, a lot of times, they were like a pink, white color. They were that hot. The heat was that hot. and just coming across me, skin, whatever, falling off of me, only to regenerate all over again, screaming and wailing. So I see this guy, and I realize something. I'm absolutely going to be alone. I can see this guy, but I know I cannot talk to him, and he cannot talk to me. I can't talk to anybody. There is no, even if someone's right next to you, you don't talk to them, you are absolutely and utterly alone. And I'm loneliness here, a person, we've all felt alone, even when we're around people, sometimes, especially when we're around. The only time I feel alone is when I'm around people. We can change that. We have that ability, that will, that power given to us by God to say, I'm done with that. Again, I was an introvert, social anxiety, couldn't stand crowded places, but that place was absolute loneliness. And I look ahead, the only thing, I was so frantic. I wished I could describe it, you guys. I am frantic. I know it's useless to keep looking, but that's all I could do. The only problem is I would see something and it would be so horrendous. And the worst mistake that I would make is I would think, it can't be any worse than that. That was just thinking that thought, you realize thinking that thought creates a new reality. And that new reality says, this has only just begun. And then it gets worse. And then you have to witness that torment. And then you think to yourself, it can't get any worse than this. It's only just begun. And that creates a whole new worse level of torment. That's what it's like. And you can't help but think, there's no way it could get worse than this. It's only just begun. Whole new level of torment. So I'm looking ahead, seeing all these rocks, seeing the flames shooting across me. And then I started to notice these black, shadowy figures moving real quick in and out. They had the power to move in and out of the rocks. Wherever they wanted to go, they went. And they were about 3 feet to 4 feet tall. And they were black. Black. I didn't know black could be like that. Let's try for something. If a black hole in the universe could take on bipedal form, that's what those things were. The evil that came out of those things was unbearable. And in that moment, when I saw these things darting in and out and the evil that was just coming right out of them, I realized what we experience here on earth is the aftermath of obliging evil. When any kind of evil influence which comes from the evil one, there's no such thing as a white lie, you guys. There's no, I just did it. You got to realize there is hearing Jesus and obeying him because we love him. And the love of the Father is within us. And that intimacy is together. And all that we are, all that we have belongs to him. All that he has belongs to us, and we're one together. There is this, and then there's not that. And anything else that we experience that is not that is of the evil one. Please think about that as you go about your day. Because the evil that came from these, I realize that's where the evil's coming from. That we experience on earth. It's coming from these things. And they're able to deceive and manipulate and be crafty. And all it takes is just they don't get you all the way to the darkness. One little step. You don't even really notice where you're going. And another little step. And then next thing, it's too late. You're too far gone. That's how they operate. The evil that came from them, I could pinch this. I could tangibly pinch the evil coming out of them. That force was that strong. And when I looked at them, that evil was so magnified and so unbearable, even my spirit body couldn't handle it, which shocked me to my core. There's in the physical, right? There's so much and then our brains are just like, I'm done, I'm out. The spirit realm, you experience everything full on, head on, all at once, on multiple levels. But yet the evil that came from them was more than my spirit could handle. And I went stiff like a board, and I stopped screaming. That's how bad the evil was. And that was bad. Not screaming in that place was very, very bad. 3 of them instantly ran up to me. The one on my left, the one on my right, they grabbed my wrist and jerked my hands up in the air like this. Obviously, I had no strength to resist anyways. I couldn't resist. They jerked my hands up in the air like this, and then the one in the middle suddenly had a wood plank in one hand and then a hammer and some nails in the other hand. And I recognized that hammer and those nails. I recognized those. And it slammed the board on my lap. And then the two slammed my hands on top of the board and held them in place. And the one in the middle put a nail on my finger with one hand, and then it started hammering. Bam! And the first hit, the nail went through. The second hit, it bent over. The third hit, my finger just cracked off to the side. The fourth hit, and then it was just cackling, this evil cackle, and it was just going like this, back and forth. It didn't care if it hit the nails or it hit my fingers. It didn't even care anymore. And the pain that went up my arms, it felt like lightning, and suddenly I could scream again. And the scream came out of me, and I remembered looking to my left at the one demon. I didn't say anything to it, but my eyes, I wanted to beg it for mercy. I knew it was a complete waste of time, but it was all I could do. I'm begging you to stop. Please stop. But to my shock and horror, when I looked over to the demon to my left, it was no longer a black shadow. I saw it in the fullness of its manifestation. And it was the most hideous thing ever. And it was just, I'm not going to go into it because I just don't feel like giving them any of my attention or time. They're not worth it. You get the point. But it had a black hood on. It was grotesque. It was like part man, part animal, part lizard, crooked razor sharp teeth, blood red eyes. But the reason why I brought it up was because when I looked over at it while I was screaming, it went back. It was taking in my screams and getting high. It was high on my pain. It was like gurgling, this erotic. It was disgusting.